Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, we often hear the phrase disrupt or be disrupted, and nearly everything is the next Uber. But today's guest and his company are often referred to as the Uber of the hospitality industry. Now, having experienced some of the pain points in this industry and also seen a few bad tech solutions out there that made the matter worse rather than improve it, I invited them on the show today to find out more about Jitjatjo and how this temporary staffing technology platform really is making a difference. Essentially, the company provides hospitality companies such as restaurants, bars, caterers and hotels with on-demand temporary staff as quickly as only 1 hour's notice. Now, anyone that has worked at a large venue to discover that the temporary staff members are not coming in an hour before the doors open will know what a massive deal this is. Not to mention if the staff they send don't have the right skills to work in a variety of areas. Jitjatjo offer an opportunity to participate in the gig economy by picking up flexible shifts and generating additional income that is based around their schedule, their lifestyle, much like Uber drivers are doing at the moment. Now, although the company operates exclusively in the New York market at the moment, it's beginning expansion into additional markets in 2018. So I just had to get them on the show to find out more. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to New York City so we can speak with Tim Chatfield, CEO and co-founder of Jitjatjo. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Tim. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hey, Neil, and everyone listening. My name's Tim Chatfield. I'm living in New York City, founded a company called Jitjatjo, which is an on-demand marketplace for temporary staff in the hospitality sector. Prior to arriving in New York, I spent 4 years living in Singapore. And before that, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm an Aussie. I was born and bred in the northern beaches of Sydney.
Oh, beautiful. Now, one of the things that I keep reading about Jitjatjo is it's often described, I think it was by Forbes that officially coined the phrase, that it's the Uber of staffing app, and it could actually revolutionise the hospitality industry. But for anyone tuning in and hearing about you guys for the very first time, can you just help set the scene and help them visualise exactly what it is and also what problems it solves?
Look, we hear that phrase quite a lot. It's been described as the Uber for staffing. It's not something we've led with, but it's a natural conclusion for people that have used the app. So similar to how Uber has revolutionised the transportation industry, particularly the taxi and hire car sector, we're doing something similar with regards to hospitality staffing, initially launched in New York. The problem that it's solving is really a problem that's systemic, and that is humans are unreliable. And that is particularly acute in the hospitality sector. The number one complaint from bars, restaurants, cafes, caterers, corporate hospitality clients that we serve is people just don't show up on time where they're meant to be when they're meant to be there. Interestingly, the second largest complaint is that they're not wearing or not presentable in the in the correct uniform or with the correct appearance as expected by their employer. And that could be something as simple as meant to be wearing all black and they've got a brown belt or brown socks on, or it could be they've grown a beard when they're meant to have no facial hair. So all that boils down to humans inherently unreliable, and labor's expensive. So in the fixed labor cost model where employers typically looking at employing staff on a full-time basis because that's what they need to do in order to retain their talent, is give them a certain minimum number of hours, normally equals around 40. That doesn't always align with the demands and peaks of a hospitality business. So, often hospitality businesses are understaffed during the peaks and because they've had to hire people on a full-time basis. The problem that we solve is addressing those two primary issues. Third being that, I haven't met many people that particularly like working with staffing agencies and recruitment consultants because they always tend to be selling and talking it up rather than necessarily providing factual information in real time. And look, I used to be one of them, so I understand that dynamic. So we've built a technology platform that's expressed as an app that solves these problems by providing real-time, factual and contextual information to both the businesses and the talent, the workers, but also enabling businesses to actually order staff when they need them on demand, or using flexible schedules as opposed to having to hire people on a full-time basis. So we essentially hire the talent. They become our employees. We do all of the vetting, the background checks, the reference checks, the skill assessments and so forth. And then we enable those people to find work through our platform. And they can choose whenever they want to work. The other interesting thing we do is we pay them instantly at the end of each shift. So we offer them flexible work and instant pay, which they seem to really like.
So what's the story behind Jitjatjo? I mean, were you affected by any of those pain points in a previous life and then set out to do something about it?
Well, my business partner, Ron McCulloch, has spent 30 years in the hospitality. I'm not sure how far you go back, Neil, but there was a humongous nightclub in Leicester Square called Home. Ron built that, also built Home in Sydney. Cool. He's owned 49 different hospitality venues, mostly throughout the UK, in fact. So he had 30 years of daily staffing drama. We were working together in another technology business and had done so for nearly a decade. And we were both looking to move on and wanted to keep working together. So we started talking about solving this problem, which he was acutely aware of.
So I've got to ask as well, I mean, what's the story behind the name, Jitjatjo?
So it's more of a story around what it isn't than what it is. What it isn't is a derivative of staffing or shifts or labour. Which is the way a lot of our contemporaries have started out. We are really building a lifestyle brand. So we wanted a name that actually meant nothing until we gave it a meaning and were able to find what it was. It's a global problem that we're tackling. So we wanted something that would translate borders. And from a domain perspective, would be widely available. So we created Jitjatjo as a fun and playful name to represent the value that our platform provides.
Now, you're in New York at the moment. I just want to give listeners an opportunity to try and visualise the kind of problem that you solve. So for example, let's say I run Madison Square Gardens, where 3 to 5 times a month there'll be 10,000 people attending a concert. I mean, finding those temporary hospitality workers at the last minute who have those required skills to work behind the bar, in the kitchens, restaurants, it's incredibly challenging. So can you just help visualise how Jitjatjo would help people managing those kind of venues, those large venues?
So we've already got, in our short existence of just 15 months since we launched, over 2,000 fully vetted, qualified, experienced hospitality professionals in our Jitjatjo community that are available at the tap of a couple of buttons on your phone, your mobile phone. So if you needed 3 people behind the bar in New York, it's cold at this time of year, so you needed 20 coat checks and then 50 servers, you could enter that entire booking in under 60 seconds in our app. And MAR, our matchmaking algorithm, which is powered by machine learning and artificial intelligence, will automatically identify the best available people for your venue at the time that you need them based on skills you say that you need. It will assign them much in the same way as Uber assigns a car of the type that you've ordered that's best suited to pick you up and get you where you need to go. So I think that's how people get to this Uber of hospitality type analogy, because we're operating on similar principles of using an algorithm and centralized intelligence to identify the best available talent for every shift.
So I guess one of the biggest questions that your customers are going to be asking is how are Jitjatjo employees actually vetted and ensure that they are highly skilled and ultimately trustworthy still?
So we've actually launched the first fully mobile W-2 onboarding workflow in the US. And W-2 is the way an employer-employee relationship is described in the US rather than an independent contractor. So all of Jitjatjo talent are actually employed by us We are their employer. That really underscores the importance we place on the relationship with them, and our understanding of the impact that they have on our brand in the marketplace. Being a transactional commercial model with no lock-in contracts, our business is either going to thrive or die based on the quality of the people that are within the community going to fulfill these shifts. So we place a lot of emphasis on the assessment and selection criteria that we use. And we've built that out in a highly scalable fashion through the mobile app. So just to talk you through the basics, an applicant would download our app, enter some basic information about who they are, where they live, etc., and then they would recreate their resume or their CV in our app, telling us where they've worked in the past, how long they've worked there, what was the job they were doing, and who they reported to. Then they apply for positions within our platform. So if you're saying you're a bartender, we're going to give you a bartender assessment that's a time-based assessment that establishes your level of knowledge about bartending. We're going to use your resume and your reference that you've provided to validate that you're actually good at being a bartender. You don't just understand what being a bartender means. We conduct a phone interview, and then we actually bring you in for an in-person interview in a group setting to see how you work with others and communicate. And then lastly, we conduct background checks to make sure that you're not a criminal, sex offender, terrorist, and you're legally able to work in the country in which you're saying you can work in. All of that then happens to move them into the talent community, where they punch in their availability into the app, and the algorithm then starts to find them opportunities based on their background, experience, skill level, and availability.
Now, one of the biggest gripes for the temporary workers themselves is often the length of time that it typically takes them to get paid. So can you tell me more about that option of that instant pay for select gigs that actually eliminates the need to wait a long time for their pay?
So I'm going to start by saying there's two issues we've identified that's holding the gig economy back. The first is reputation portability. If you're going to hire someone on a full-time basis, you're going to spend a lot more time vetting them yourself than you have available if you're just bringing them in for a shift. Okay, so what I've just described to you in terms of the assessment and selection criteria in our onboarding process deals with the reputation portability issue. Second is, how long do we have to wait to get paid, and how much of a hassle that's going to be. We launched with instant pay from day dot, which we thought was the most attractive and fair approach to reward talent for the services they had rendered. And if you think about, in a services-based game, your maximum point of leverage is before you actually render the service, not after. Once you've rendered the service, your leverage is gone from the equation because your job's done. We just didn't want that to be a question mark at all. So as soon as the employer verifies their hours, we actually wire the funds directly into their check or savings account, and they can deduct it from the ATM immediately.
Fantastic. So do you only currently serve in the US, and if you do you have any plans expanding your offerings to Europe, Australia and other regions too? Absolutely,
we do. We made the decision to move to the US to launch this business, to build deep foundations in a very robust and cutthroat market that would enable us to grow globally much faster than if we did it coming from Australia or Asia and coming back in. We've maintained a disciplined approach around proving ourselves in the New York market. Frank Sinatra coined the phrase, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. It is a very cutthroat market here, and I'm pleased to report we've got 94% positive ratings of our shifts and 94% repeat bookings for 2017. So we're making fantastic ground. We're in the process of doing our Series A capital raise at the moment, and off the back of that, we'll commence a national expansion within the US. and then move towards international expansion towards the end of this year or into 19, depending on the market climate.
Well, a huge thank you for coming on today. Before I do let you go, could I just ask that you remind the listeners of your website URL, any social channels that you're on, and also how anyone listening could reach out to you guys if they've just got any questions at all?
Absolutely. Look, just jump on our website. It's the easiest. Jitjatjo, JITJATJO.com. All of our social handles are Jitjatjo, so you punch Jitjatjo into Google and you're going to find us, and we'd love to hear from you.
It's one of the great parts of your name there, isn't it? That you stick it into Google, you're going to be the number one result, right?
Absolutely.
Well, again, a huge thanks for coming on today. I've frequented that world a little, and I know how difficult it is, especially in large concert arenas when you need hundreds of staff at short notice and you've got an hour till the gates open. And you're several staff down. It's just incredibly challenging. I don't know how people live in that world cope on a regular basis, but it is challenging. And the fact that you're using technology to create a solution and fix that problem, it's got a universal appeal. So I think you guys have got an incredibly bright future. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on, taking the time to share that story.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you, Neil.
When people arrive at the concert or big event, they seldom think about the logistics behind the scenes. And you know what? Why should they? But this really is a huge pain point within the industry, because the hospitality industry is notorious for its irregular nature, especially when staffing issues such as last-minute call-out or the difficulty of scheduling, all according to the fluctuations in demand. But Jitjatjo seems to be tackling that problem by empowering business owners to fill those staffing voids by matching companies with reputable workers that are able to arrive on location in as little as 1 hour. I also love that all the talent employed by Jitjatjo also removes the time-consuming burden of human resources processes such as tax forms, payroll, etc. And it allows managers just to focus on building all other aspects of their business. I also think it's fascinating how the company actually accepts less than 10% of its applicants, because each employee must undergo that rigorous vetting process consisting of skills assessments, multi-round interviews and background checks, because it's no good sending people that are not fit to work in an environment. And I love how the Jitjatjo are actually really protective of their own name, their brand, and making it a success. My only complaint, of course, is it's only in New York City at the moment. But I really do think that this concept could transform the entire hospitality industry. So I'm going to be watching this project very closely. So over to you. Do you have any insights or experiences in this field at large venues or in the hospitality industry? I'd love to hear your challenges and your experiences. So tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Send me an email, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Or if you just want to check out all the other episodes, you can go to techblogwriter.co.uk/podcasts. I reply to every message that comes my way, as long as it's not just a faceless sales pitch. Call me old-fashioned, at least try and get to know me first. So a big thank you to each and every one of you for listening. I'll be back tomorrow. Got another guest lined up for you all. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.